My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Jesus, as we come to you in this time of prayer today, it's very good to examine our hearts, to dwell on the areas in our life where we need to improve, to think about the things perhaps that we should try and change, to examine our conscience. Prayer is a constant process of purification. It's a process which changes us. St. John Henry Newman said that to live is to change, and to be holy is to have changed often. We don't stand still in the spiritual life. We're either moving forwards or we're drifting backwards. There is no such thing as a static soul. So let's always try and see our prayer as changing us for the better, enabling us to be the people God created us to be. One of the lines in the examination of conscience that always strikes me deeply, and rather uncomfortably, I have to say, is, do I do my work when I ought? Today? Now? Or do I deceive myself by leaving it for later, which is the same as not doing it at all? It's strong stuff, isn't it? Many of us were perhaps brought up with the adage, better late than never. But procrastination here is looked upon as a kind of refusal, a denial of submitting to God's will by not doing things at the proper time. St. Josemaria introduced a similar concept with his proposal of the heroic minute, the idea that we get out of bed instantly when the alarm clock goes off in the morning. Here he says you have a mortification that strengthens your will and does no harm to your body. If, with God's help, you conquer yourself, you will be well ahead for the rest of the day. And then he adds, it's so discouraging to find oneself beaten at the first skirmish. The great enemy when it comes to this battle of the heroic minute is an invention called the snooze button, that little device that allows us to delay the inevitable moment of getting on with the day. The snooze button is like the serpent in the Garden of Eden, whispering untruths to us. You deserve just another few minutes. You've earned a softer start today. Give yourself a bit of a break. And it's quite fatal. Some people are so susceptible to the allure of the snooze button that they have to position the alarm clock completely on the other side of the room, out of reach. Well, the gospel today, Jesus, is a kind of antidote to snooze buttons. You tell us to stay awake because we do not know on what day the Lord is coming. We're being encouraged to remain watchful and alert at all times, ready for the moment when God invites us into his presence at the end of our lives. One of the things that I always try and do when I'm preaching at funerals is to ask people to contemplate, just for a few minutes, their own death. This might be viewed as a morbid thing to do, but actually it can be quite a good exercise. It focuses the mind on the fact that our time here on earth is limited, and that one day all of us will be called into the presence of God. Time is one of the most precious things that we have, and it's constantly running out. It's a bit like one of those hourglasses where the sand is gradually being transferred from the upper bulb to the lower one. It's slowly but surely disappearing. So the way we use that time, the way we live our lives in the light of our own death, something which is absolutely inevitable for all of us, is important. Jesus, you speak of being dressed for action. and having lamps that are lit. People during your time on earth would have worn long flowing garments. I know from personal experience as a priest that for certain tasks, long flowing garments are not entirely practical. So what people would do is hitch up their robes and tie them up so that they could move around more easily. This is where we get the expression, to gird your loins. And of course, to have one's lamp lit indicates that someone is prepared and waiting for something to happen, or for someone to arrive. Elsewhere in the Gospel, Jesus, you speak of having enough oil on hand in order to keep the lamps burning brightly. So we understand, Lord, that you are telling us to be ready, to be prepared. But what does this mean in a practical sense? How do we become more prepared? How do we remain vigilant and awake? Well, a big part of this vigilance is remaining in a state of grace. It's important to examine our conscience every day, to see what's going well and what's not going quite so well. If there are dark areas in our life, serious sins that need confessing, then we need to get to confession as soon as possible in order to keep the flame of charity burning. And if we're truly honest, we sometimes forget the need to be vigilant because we can think, well, I'm following Jesus already. I'm coming to Mass, I'm praying, I'm living a decent sort of life. What more do I need to do? Peter asks the same question when he says, Lord, is this parable really for us too? But waiting for Christ's return means being focused on him in a particular way. It means loving and serving others in the way that he has taught us. When we lose that focus on Jesus, then we give up on this life of service, and all sorts of other things begin to fill the gap. We can very easily seek compensations in things like power and money and pleasure. This is what Jesus is talking about in the parable he gives us. My master is delayed, the servant says, and he begins to mistreat people and to eat and drink and get drunk. And the root problem is always a lack of a proper relationship with the Lord. When our hearts become closed, when we stop praying, then our treasure will not be found in Jesus, but in worldly consolations. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. This is the reason that there are so many problems with addictions of one kind or another in society at the moment. When people lose sight of God in their lives, then there's a hole that needs to be filled by something else. So the solution to any addiction is a spiritual one. If someone has a problem with drink or drugs or gambling or overeating or pornography or anything negative and spiritually harmful, then the solution is to get God back into their life, because he is the only one that will truly satisfy. He is the only one that can fulfill. Let's try and make use of everything that the Church gives us in order to face the future coming of Jesus with serenity and trust. Mass, confession, rosary, daily prayer, and of course a relationship with our Mother Mary. And in our conversation with Jesus each day, let's ask him for the grace of being fully prepared so that we may enter one day into the joy and glory of heaven. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask you for help to put them into effect, my Immaculate Mother, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.